Good morning. A little closer. Okay. Maria Antunia, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Present online.
Great. Rex Barnes, Compass.
Present.
Amanda Canetti, Compass. Cassandra Corbin Thaddeus, Palm Beach Council of PTAs. Suzanne Cordero, El Sol Jupiter. Sue Davis Killian, Gold Coast Down Syndrome. Carla Donaldson, ESC Advisory Committee. Reggie Durandis for the Children. Mary Evans, Tri-Cities. Dr. Miriam Glamad, IET in Action.
That's a open or vacant position.
Okay, thank you. Robin Jones, FAU card.
Present online.
Emmy Kenny, Palm Beach County Council Human Rights Council.
Present.
Myra Levy Bazemore, Coalition for Black Student Achievement. Lindsay McElroy, Guatemalan Mayan Center. Craig McKenzie, Economic Council of Palm Beach County.
Present online.
Dr. Gabriela Mendez, Hispanic Education Coalition. Rachel Mondesar, West Palm Beach, NAACP. Juan Pagan, Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Presente. Buenos días.
Welcome. Charmaine Postal, Palm Beach Council of PTAs.
Present.
Eddie Rhodes, Tri-Cities. Kimberly Spiro, ESC Advisory Committee.
Spire O, and I'm present online.
Thank you. Latoya Stevenson, Urban League of Palm Beach County. Evelyn Vargas, Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Okay. And Carrie Whittle, FAU card.
Present online.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Holslaw, I should have probably mentioned Marsha Guthrie for West Palm Beach NAACP and for Rachel Mondesir. I didn't hear my name, so.
Thank you. We'll make the adjustment.
Thank you.
Okay. Gotcha, hon. Thank you.
Approval of January minutes. The minutes was distributed online or via email by Ms. Susan Hosclaw. I can have a motion.
So moved. Kimberly Spire O.
Motion by Juan Pagan, second by Kimberly Spiro. Any changes to this motion? I'm sorry, any changes to this minutes? Any necessary changes? Any discussions about them? Minutes will be, this is not the same meeting. I'm sorry, we make a motion, we make a motion on this meeting. All in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes for the January DDEC minutes are approved with no changes. November minutes, I received an email regarding November minutes. Is Susan Hosclaw or the changes that was necessary, is that coming forth at this meeting? The motion for the November minutes?
I'm not sure what the procedure is, but I got an email that Sue Davis Killian was in attendance at that meeting, and she was not recorded as being present.
Okay. And So with that being said, Ms. Sue is not here, but a motion. Oh, thank you. Did you want to bring forth that motion at this time, Sue, regarding the November minutes?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to update correct the November minutes to show that I was in attendance.
Okay, the November minutes was reflected that Sue was not in attendance. She would like to recall that those meeting minutes and correct them to reflect her attendance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Sue Killen Davis, second by Juan Pagan. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The November meeting minutes will be reflected as corrected. Updates from Chief of Equity and Wellness.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all, either online or in person. I know we're going to talk about it in a minute regarding the letter from the DDEC and the board action last night. I do want to commend the action of the DDEC and their work to present the letter. The board did also have another letter, and we'll talk about it. I do a personal thank the board, the chair, who came out last night, as well as Emmy, who came out last night to speak. There was a lot of praise from the school board for the work of the DDC and to take this action that was critical to really keep our students safe. So again, personally, I thank you for your work around that, and we'll talk a little bit more probably in a minute about that letter, so I'll come back to that. I do want to talk about, we've been having our data meetings with our schools, so with Ed Tierney, Deputy Superintendent, our Chief Academic Officer, Glenn Sheffield, myself, the Superintendent, meeting with those schools based on predicted school grades, based on midterm diagnostics. As you all know, there's been a lot of unfinished learning due to the effects of the pandemic. It's been exacerbated, and so we meet with the principals to talk about the plan prior to state testing. There are a lot of consequences that come with school grades, so supporting those schools and those students are critical. So we look at everything, not only academics, but the whole school, discipline, attendance, and whatnot. So with attendance, which is under this particular division, attendance and chronic absenteeism is at an all-time high, numbers that I just never thought I would see in my lifetime around kids not being in school, as well as another project that we've been working on. I'm sure it's been talked about over the last couple of years, but in the last year or so, are those students who never return back to brick and mortar. So there's numbers that have been tossed around between this year and last year. It's roughly around 8,000. There's a team through Safe Schools that have been hired to really locate those. There's been a lot of progress where they've reached out to around over 3,800 students. And I can give a more detailed update if it's of interest of the DDC. I think it is an important issue because we do need to get, as a community, ahead of this attendance issue. And then the number of days absent that our students are not coming to school, that aren't even just not, have not shown up. So I can go in more detail because I would like to implore this committee's support in really getting the word out around how we address attendance and showing up for school every day. It's critically important for the growth of our students. And I can go in more detail. Also last night, the school board did take action on an item with a particular vendor called Graduation Alliance, who's going to assist us with that list of students to make the contact to find those students. So of that 3,800, it varies greatly, where we found many students who have moved out of state and are in school, moved out of county, gone to private school, gone to home school, et cetera. But there are a pocket that are living right in Palm Beach County that are not in school. So we're working hard to problem solve and case manage, working with the families and the obstacles of why these students aren't in school to get them school. There are students who are choosing to potentially drop out, where we're really trying to engage them in some kind of educational services. Graduation Alliance will assist with the reach out, provide virtual coaching I call it kind of like a virtual mentoring type support, which is a different outreach, as well as they have a component of virtual education with a lot more wraparound services, similar to Florida Virtual, but with much more wraparound support. So students who have chosen or had to, because of life circumstances, take on employment to support the families and others, this particular vendor is going to help us work through. It was approved last night by the school board, so I'm pleased with that. We are meeting with that group on Friday with a bunch of people internally to get started on the next steps on that. But I do want to bring up that whole attendance. Also last night, the board took on another item, an agreement with JFK North. And in a few minutes, we're going to give an update on the policy 5.20. And when it comes to the mental and behavioral health response of the district and what has been done since the last time we gave you this group an update, this particular agreement last night with JFK North is and brought really to us in collaboration with increased needs of students who need longer-term treatment. Parents can voluntarily have their kids do a day treatment type program and come for an extended time, somewhere between 3 to 6 weeks, to get additional support. So these particular students who were initially transferred or Baker acted, whether it was from the school center or from the community, there are those where JFK North sees longer-term support is needed. We would provide educational services at the site, while at the same time they get their treatment through JFK therapists. So excited about that particular project, just as another extension to support our students. And then obviously closely watching the legislative session. If you did tune into the board meeting last night, you saw an update from our legislative liaisons. And to give an update, there are a number of bills that are flying fast and furious, and obviously the particular that deals with the letter, which a couple of different bills, I think we're going to talk momentarily, obviously is a big concern of many people in the community, as well as the school district and its potential impact moving forward and how we address that. So that is my update at this time, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any questions for Mr. Oswald? I just wanted one point of clarification. There was an ask, if I heard correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, regarding attendance to present before this body on attendance. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct. I would like to propose that sometime in the near future to go over some data points around attendance and how it's been exacerbated even upon return back to brick and mortar. And potential support from the agencies that are represented here and the community members for support around addressing this. The school district can't do it alone. We need support of others.
Okay. With that being said, if it is the will of this committee, if I can get a motion for that, let's just handle that and get that out of the way before we start the question. If that is, first, is that the will of this committee to entertain the attendance presentation by Mr. Oswald?
This is Marsha. I'd like to motion the attendance presentation at a future meeting. Ms. Guthrie.
Second.
The motion by Ms. Guthrie, writing that motion as is, a motion to entertain, motion for Mr. Oswald to present attendance data and have a discussion around problem solving. Can I add a date to that? Maybe we're in March, so either we're in February, March, or April meeting. How much time do you need? Okay. Seeing that it's important, and we probably could have it at that March meeting just to get ahead for spring break. And we currently do not have anything on our agenda for the March break other than an update. Is the committee, is there any objection from the committee to have this in March? Okay, so going back to that motion to Mr. Oswald to present attendance data and have a discussion around problem solving at the March DDEC meeting. Motion was by Ms. Guthrie, second by Ms. Kenny. Correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussions? Go ahead. There's two discussions. Is it regarding this motion that's on the floor? The hands that are raised? No. And no.
No.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Going back to questions for Mr. Oswald, and just a reminder, we have 7 minutes, so please, if you speak one time, we have 7 minutes remaining on this topic with Mr. Oswald. If you speak one time, please give the other committees that respect so that they can speak. I saw Kimberly, then Robin.
I just want to find out from Mr. Oswald. I wasn't able to watch the whole meeting last night, but whether we want to, I guess this is also to the committee, whether we want to address having sheriff's office officers take over policing of the schools when they don't have the training for dealing with children, especially children with disabilities.
So for those, if you weren't, there was a letter that was shared with the school board. It was read by a constituent in the community around a letter that was sent to the governor's office that they take action. And I believe Dr. Robinson is also on, and as well as legal, but essentially I'm summarizing to have the school police department move over to the sheriff's office. But I don't...
I'm sorry, just so we are remaining on topic and within the conversations that are within this meeting, let's just stick with what is on. If that's, I want to entertain that question. Perhaps maybe that's in the new business. Is this the questions for Mr. Oswald under the update from Chief of Equity is, let's just make sure that is germane to the topic that he was discussing at that time in his presentation. So we're not completely off topic in our meetings. So Ms. Kimberly, if you want to entertain that in the new business section.
Certainly.
Thank you. Any further questions? I think Robin had her hands up relating to Mr. Oswald's report.
Yes, my question was, those kids that are being seen or educated in the setting of JFK, is that considered hospital homebound? And if they aren't on an IEP, do they become, do they go through the process of getting an IEP? Or is that a school site? Is that considered now a school site, like at when they're educated at not JFK, but DJJ, that's considered a school site. So if they're housed at JFK, is that a site or is that through hospital homebound?
So this is a new line of work, so that's a great question. So it is not hospital homebound, because I think hospital homebound kicks in, and Dr. Misenik is also here to present shortly. I think it's after 9 weeks. This is shorter term treatment that right now more between like 3 to 6 weeks. It is not a DJJ site. The school, the educational services will be provided through the student's home school, and we will use Google Classroom. We will provide a classroom teacher at the school to work with the students because we're going to have students from different schools there. We'll work through the home school. The length of stay is not long enough to kick in hospital homebound or a different type of educational services. So educationally, it's more appropriate to stick with their current homeschool, which they would be transitioning right back after the completion of the treatment. Dr. Misenik, anything to add?
Yes, absolutely. This program was created to really fill that gap in services because we didn't want children to be missing out on any of their educational opportunities. So when a child is hospitalized in short term and it's only like, a few days to a week, that's manageable. But when we are dealing with complex children that need extensive treatment for that 3 to 6 week gap. This is a program to fill that, to make sure that they don't, fall behind. We don't want to add to their burden. So this is a really great new initiative, and we're very excited about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Chief of Equity, Rex Byrne?
Yes. So I was just wondering if we knew what type of LGBT training that JFK North has done, because I've had youth that have gone to JFK North in the past that have been completely misgendered and have had a not great experience as a trans and LGBT youth at JFK North.
I am not sure about that. I don't know if Dr. Senek, you are sure, but we can definitely inquire.
Yeah, we can definitely inquire into that.
There's another question that's in the chat by Kimberly Sparrow. Traditionally, hospital homebound kicks in if a student is going to miss 2 weeks. Has that changed?
It hasn't changed per se, but we wouldn't go through and do a hospital homebound, that whole packet, and convene a meeting for 1 week when we're anticipating the child's just going to be returned back to their home school. So we wouldn't want to do hospital homebound, for a week or two. That's just a huge strain on the system, and we don't want to change their teachers and their routine and all of that. This is to provide consistency for those children who are hospitalized and, for that short-term period.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on to unfinished business. If there's no further questions online. Okay. Move on to unfinished business. Update on support letter. Just want to say, guys, we could not thank the person who spearheaded this letter and took the lead on this letter. One of our committee members, Emmy Kenny, she took this lead. She brought it before us. And while collectively we made it happen, someone had to take charge, and we thank you, Emmy, for taking charge and reaching out to reaching out to one of our board members and reaching out to furthering the mission on what we all collectively agreed on, and the vision was fulfilled. We got that support, and we thank the board. And so at this time, we'll have an update from Emmy.
Yes. Thank you all, really. I'm from where we started, everyone being open to learning and getting on the same page about this. The timing could not have been better, really. We did not know that these bills were going to be like this. So I just want to thank everybody here who was open and worked on this and made this happen. So just to give you an update on the entire process. So our letter that we drafted was sent out to the community. We had 12 organizations sign on. And I also, since we didn't know what the timing would be like, it was recommended to me by the chief of staff to have individual school board members sign on to it, and 6 school board members did sign on to that letter. So that letter that we drafted had 12 organizations, 6 school board members. That letter was sent to Tallahassee. I sent it to all of the whole legislature, and then I sent it to whatever committee members were debating that bill that day. I actually had the opportunity to go to Tallahassee myself with a group of LGBTQ youth through the Florida Coalition for Transgender Liberation, and testified in the House Judiciary Committee and brought up the letter and let everyone know to please read that letter. So the school board drafted a new letter. I think the letter is great. It has all of the same information, but said in their voice. And since we already sent our letter, it's going to double the impact. So thank you so much to the school board. I spoke at the meeting last night to thank them, and a few people in my network showed up as well. A former student of mine who is trans and experienced all of this firsthand drove up from Pompano and testified as well. So thank you everyone. I'm very proud of this committee, and I think this is exactly the kind of work that our committee should be working on.
Absolutely. Do you have a list of the 12 organizations? I know the board members all but Mr. Barbieri signed on. Do you have the list of the organizations that signed on?
Yes. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's in my email. and I can send this to Susan and send it out, the finalized letter. It was Planned Parenthood of Southeast and North Florida, Compass Community Center, Transpire Help, Hispanic Education Coalition of Palm Beach County, Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Palm Beach County Human Rights Council, Florida PTA, Palm Beach County Council PTA, the Democratic Public Education Caucus of Palm Beach County, Workers and Families Democratic Alliance, Democratic Disability Caucus of Palm Beach County, and the ESE Advisory Committee.
Thank you. That's great. Any questions for Emmy? Amazing work. Moving right along. Back in November, I believe, at our November meeting, we had a presentation by the Mental Health Response Crisis, the Mental Health or Safety.
Student Mental Health Crisis Response Policy.
Thank you. I could not get that if I wanted to say my life. We had that presentation, and we requested an update, a quarterly update, and this is our first quarterly update at this meeting, so I will hand over the floor to Mr. Oswald.
So a lot of work has been going on. I need to stop sharing to share another screen for a second. As it relates to this particular policy, and Dr. Misenek is leading a lot of that work, so she is going to provide an update, also including some of the data which was requested of this group. Give me one moment. I'm usually sharing with two screens, so with one, I'm a little rusty.
Your tab, I think.
Just give me a minute. I know what I'm doing.
Oh, and there it is.
Y'all think I'm... Just because I'm old, they don't think I can do technology.
All these women trying to tell you what to do.
All right, Dr. Misenek.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me back. I'm Dr. Mary Claire Misenek. I am the director of the Department of Behavioral and Mental Health, and I'm bringing you an update on our Policy 5.20 that was passed this fall. That's our Student Mental Health Crisis Response Policy. So what I'm going to cover today is some of our district compliance training and who's doing that. Also, our district mobile response team are called CAPE teams. We call them Crisis Assessment, Prevention, and Education teams. And I wanted to update you on the type of professional development that we've provided to those teams when they're responding to schools. And also our documentation and data reporting. And then who we've been collaborating with on all this work. And then, like Mr. Oswald mentioned to you, the JFK North Adolescent Intensive Outpatient Program. I'll just give you some more information on that as well. So in terms of compliance training, and this is written into the policy, we did a policy overview 5.20 on student mental health crisis and just reviewed the policy. And we made it mandatory that everyone not only read the policy, and we had a bulletin on it, but they also attended training on it. And that was mandatory for principals, assistant principals, school counselors, school psychologists, and our behavioral health professionals. In addition, which is in accordance to statute, we are requiring all school-based staff to take suicide awareness and prevention training. And there's a list of approved trainings that's provided by Florida DOE, and one of them is Jason Foundation. It is a free training that is offered. They have a number of different modules, so we have chosen that for our schools to take, and that's mandatory for everyone who's school-based. And then we also have a prevention and de-escalation training that's really beyond the basics for our mental health group. The training was developed. It was a collaboration between ESE and our CAPE team, and it's provided to school counselors, our school psychologists, and our school behavioral health professionals, so they're required to take that as well. So in terms of CAPE, our actual team that goes out for crisis response, they are very aware and have taken the Policy 5.20 training, the suicide awareness and prevention training that everyone else is required to take. They have either taken it or they were part of developing the prevention and de-escalation training. They have also taken and/or provided the mental health crisis response overview for school teams. There was an online webinar. It's trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy training that they also received. They provided, either they attended or were part of the collaboration to develop the mental health crisis response overview for school leaders. All of our licensed mental health professionals have taken the Florida Certification Board Introduction to the Baker Act that has 3 parts. They have also either taken or helped develop that prevention and de-escalation training, and then all of them have been required to take the Skills for Psychological Recovery that was put out by the National Child Traumatic Stress Network.
Question. What does the overview, the mental health crisis response overview for school teams, what does that cover? Do you know offhand?
It does. It has, it's an overview about our crisis response, whether it's an individual student who's in crisis or if there's a school-wide crisis, like, who to contact, how to get assistance, some steps you can take. It's a brief training of a 6-hour training that we have. We actually have a national curriculum on crisis response and preparedness. And so this is an overview because we're really encouraging school leaders to take that 6-hour course and be certified.
And who sees the overview? Is that the CAPE teams or the school?
It's provided. They developed that for all the school leaders.
If we can let the presenter finish the presentation and wait until all questions, because she have quite a few slides left. So
no
just
problem.
let it, the answer might be within a few slides, but just let it, if we can, if that's okay with the board, the committee.
So if you can, the next slide, I think we have a few more things. The Jason Foundation, we have chosen one of these modules is provided for all school staff, but the CAPE team has taken all 3 of the Jason Foundation modules that are available online. They also participated in the opening keynote session we had this year on student mental health provided by BrainSmart. They have also taken the Promoting Emotional Regulation in Children, Evidence-Based Practices, and Internet-Based Resources. They took a webinar on building a bridge from adversity to resilience, and also they have taken training on wraparound principles for school-based mental health teams.
And just for clarification, I want to add into this that the CAPE team is the team that is first called when a student is in crisis to provide the school-based personnel additional support and training before a decision is made. And they're really helping assist the school, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Masai, but in the de-escalation process as well as the assessment and to make decisions on whether or not a student needs additional support.
Yeah, these are our district mobile response team. We have a community mobile response team, but this is our district-based team that we refer to as CAPE team. So we wanted to make sure that they had really outstanding quality training because, they're dealing with our most vulnerable kids at a critical time when they're in crisis at schools, and we wanted to make sure that they were certainly aware of all of the policies and procedures and how to support school leaders and school teams as well as individual students and families. So we wanted to outline all the different trainings that they've received this year. So in terms of documentation and data reporting, we have a behavioral threat assessment module it's called the Ed Plan. And part of that behavioral threat assessment module contains the suicide risk assessment. And according to state statute, whenever a child is a threat to themselves or others, we convene our behavioral threat assessment, suicide risk assessment team that meet and kind of review the incident and go through, various interviews, asking questions, and then determine, what kind of support and interventions our students may need. Part of the suicide risk assessment, it contains the Columbia screener. And that's 6 questions on, the child's intent if they are having suicidal ideation. We also have, we look at the number of monthly transports, and I have the data a little bit later in the presentation. We look at the monthly transports that school police, because they are required to do that transport if we think a child is a threat to themselves or others, for the examination for involuntary hospitalization. So we take a look at the number of transports that school police actually do, and we meet and discuss that and take a look at that data. And then we also do a monthly and kind of quarterly data analysis on exactly what's happening. If we see a lot of repeats at certain schools, we want to intervene with that school perhaps. Maybe that school team needs extra support. So we really look at schools who have an excess of 2 transports in a quarter to see how we might be able to provide them some additional supports as a school team. So, we're all about prevention. We really want them prepared with de-escalation strategies so our students don't get to that point in crisis. And then we have, which is new this year, there's a yearly reporting requirement to Florida DOE, and they're going to be asking for the number of transports and demographic data. We don't have what exactly that report's going to look like because it hasn't been done yet, but we're waiting to hear from DOE as to exactly what they're what kind of information they want reported up.
And that the monthly report also goes to the school board as required by policy.
So this is so far this year, our transports. We have, if you look, we're doing pretty good here. We don't have data from last year, but we did have our policy was approved in September. So really, all of our new procedures went in starting in October. That the end of September, beginning of October, where we were following the new procedures according to the policy. And what we're finding is it's really, it's really spread out. We see mostly female Hispanics when we take a look at the data in terms of who's being transported. But we do have it broken down by grade, by school, by areas in the county. We're taking a look at all of that data. So as you can see, our total for the year, this year, is 42. Mostly, we have a lot more females than males. So we have 30 overall females and 12 males. ESE, 12 in all. And then when we look at the race and ethnicity, it's pretty divided in terms of black versus white. The N is non-Hispanic. And then we have ethnicity. We have, again, the 13 Hispanics and 29 non-Hispanics. So when we look at this data and we really break it down, we're seeing it mostly with female Hispanics. That seems to be our biggest need at this point. We also have the data there so you can see our ELLs, our gifted, and our 504s. And just as an aside as well, some of you may be curious, in terms of the ESE students, it's the most, I should say, the category of students, ESE students, who are highest on this of the 12 is specific learning disabilities, which you might find surprising. The second highest group was the ASD and EBD. So it really was our SLD, and then, of course, our other health impaired. So they were pretty evenly divided. It was four, I believe it was the 4 SLDs, it was 3 EBD and 3 ASD, and then the others were other health impaired and some other things. So it was pretty evenly spread out there.
And there was, I think it was only one school that met the 2.
Yeah, there was only one school in this whole first period that had more than 2. That was one of our.
It was only 3, I think they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they had 3, and we provided support to that school, and they have a challenging population there. So it wasn't any particular pattern. We are looking for patterns through this data to see really what's so good is we have never collected this data, so now we are, but then we can really take a look at these trends and see where we can put prevention and intervention strategies in place, either in particular areas of the county, in particular schools, or with particular populations. So we're just seeing some trends emerge, and that's what some of our collaborative groups are discussing on how we can intervene.
And I just want to add on those collaborative group meetings, they do happen monthly. It was eye-opener for me. There's a share out from, I believe it's the sheriff's office, as well as who goes over data on the transports that are really community initiated, which range in like a couple hundred a month, which I was quite surprised. So one of the issues that I really want to work on is how do we bridge what's happening at home or in the community so that the school can support that during the day, because our numbers are relatively small compared to how many are actually getting support and service through community. So however it's initiated through the community, so we have those discussions as well.
Yeah, so January we had 6 from our schools, but it was over 160 from the community during the same time. So we want to work collaboratively, and I do have a slide on who's in that collaboration so that we can work on some interventions and prevention activities for throughout the whole community, not just during the school day. So the reported reasons, the top 3, when we looked through the 42, the top reasons students said they were having suicidal ideation was feeling depressed, having low self-esteem, and having issues at home. So that seemed to be the top 3 things that we've seen in this small group of data. Other things, children had reported abuse, someone had passed or was incarcerated. They were having issues at school, bullying, peer issues. They felt alone, sexual identity issues, and we did have a few youngsters who were having auditory hallucinations. So those were just, we just are taking a look at that data, so that's new data as well. In terms of, we have 2 different meetings that meet monthly. According to policy, we have to only meet quarterly, but we're meeting monthly because this is all new data and this is a new policy. We want to make sure that we're really on top of things. So we have an internal stakeholders meeting, which has school police, the ESE department, my department, the Department of Behavioral and Mental Health, Safe Schools is represented, multicultural education. We have our Associate Superintendent of Performance Accountability, Mr. Oswald is our Chief Equity and Wellness person, our Chief Academic Officer, Chief of Police, and District Security, and then anyone else that needs to come to that internal meeting attends. And then also in terms of our external stakeholders, again, it's monthly with my department runs it with ESE. We have representatives from General Counsel. We have 3 principals who are also on that committee that are elementary, middle, and high school, so that we can hear their voices. Again, Mr. Oswald attends. School police. We have the South County Mobile Response Team Director there, who attends. Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, the JFK Community Liaison, Sharon Tarlow, and our Southeastern Florida Behavioral Health Network, a representative there. From there. So we're really looking to see how we can collaborate. So our internal stakeholder meeting is how can we do things better and to make sure our policy is working and any improvements and changes we may have to make moving forward as it's a new process and procedure for the county and the district. And then the external stakeholder meeting is how can we all work together at the community and the school district in really reducing Baker Acts across the whole county.
And at the request of this group to add a parent to this particular group, we are trying to seek some recommendations from this group through particular JFK, if they have a parent who's willing to serve in that role to provide the parent perspective as well.
Yeah, we've asked at every meeting we've had so far. We've asked for parent participation, and I haven't been able to get a parent yet. But we're still looking. So this brings us to the program that Mr. Oswald mentioned that was passed by the board last night. It is entitled the JFK North Adolescent Intensive Outpatient Program, and it's located at JFK Medical Center North Campus. It's really designed to work with students ages 13 to 17 who are experiencing those primary psychiatric disorders. So these are more complex disorders, more complex issues for students and children that they need more than just a few days at the hospital, and they need more extensive therapy that can be provided by this program. It allows teens to receive those therapeutic services and attend school through the evening programming. And its intention is for short term. So we're looking at 6 weeks max. Okay, so it could start at 3 weeks, go 3-4 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, but we're not looking at anything more than 6 to 8 weeks at the maximum for this program, because then if it was longer term, we'd be looking at hospital homebound services. So this is really a short term, filling a gap that we have been unable to fill up until now. And what we're finding is, actually in the last year or two, is that the students and the children coming have much more complex needs. So before, it was easier for them to be hospitalized and then referred to a community agency or some sort of therapeutic services, and that seemed to be enough. But it's not anymore. So we're finding children are staying longer for longer periods of time at JFK. They've increased their number of beds, and they're more complex. So they're staying longer, and they need additional support that, a few years back, it just wasn't happening. So this is a new need for students, or a newer in the past couple of years, and now we're filling it. So we are very excited. As well.
Parents voluntarily have to participate.
Yes, the parents do have to agree. I mean, there's other options. They could do outpatient. They could go. There's a number of different options that families can avail themselves to, but this would be a new one. So,
Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. At this time, the first person, I see a hand online. I thought it was online. Kimberly has her hand raised, but the first person I'm going to go back to is Sue. Is there anyone in the room that have questions? I do have a question. Emmy has a question, so it's going to go with Sue, Kimberly. I'll go with Emmy. I'll go last since I'm the chair. Sue, Kimberly, Emmy, Carrie. Anybody else in the room? I'm going back and forth. And then who's the other person that's raised? You got to open the queue. There's another hand that's raised online. Go ahead, Sue. After Emmy, Maria.
Just can you talk a little bit more about the evening programming? The school, it said, that they continue their education with evening programming. Is that online, I assume, or what's that look like?
They actually have a space within JFK where they can attend, and there is a teacher in the room with them, and they would get their materials and their work from the home school, so they can have that continuity of services. And it's it's just brought for those 13 to 17-year-olds. So it's just really important that they don't have any learning losses during that period of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
I would like to request the opportunity to see or go through the trainings that are offered to all the different groups. And the reason is that sometimes there may be something that may be missing, and then we can let you know so you can fill that gap. For those of us who work with a wide population, we might be able to identify something that could be added to it for your consideration. Obviously, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I've also seen different needs the kids have.
Absolutely. I've listed there quite a few different trainings. Is there, maybe we can email, or we can discuss which trainings you would like to see.
And if there's anybody else who's interested, maybe, Kimberly, if it's okay, maybe there could be a subcommittee where you could sit with some of Dr. Musenek's team to go through those.
Okay. And I'm interested in all of them because I don't want to review some and then the answer is in another one.
Yeah, it's quite extensive, so I would suggest first a separate meeting with the select team so they can go a little bit deeper into each one, and then because some are face-to-face, some are online. They're different formats.
Some we created, some were put out by national organizations, some are best practices in the area. So if there's a particular concern and you have some questions that you want to be addressed about different student populations, that might help us because then we could identify which training it would be in or whether it's missing or not. That might be
Kimberly, that might be a motion for a subcommittee.
I make a motion for a subcommittee to be created so that we can review the different things. And I work with kids who have all different disabilities, so I really am interested in seeing them all, but other committee members may want to only review some of them. My motion is for a subcommittee to be created.
To review district training as it relates to student mental health crisis response.
Exactly.
Second.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Kimberly for a subcommittee to be created to review district training as it relates to student mental health crisis. Seconded by Emmy Kinney. Are there any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Oppose? None. Motion carries unanimously. Unfinished business under the new business. With this subcommittee, we can discuss a possible meeting date. Anyone who's interested at that time, we can revisit this under unfinished business. I'm sorry, under new business. If you're interested during the new business, we would discuss who would like to attend and what the next meeting would look like. So at this time, you can also multitask and look at your calendars. The next person was Emmy.
I just had a quick question. Is this program happening now or it's going to start soon?
The JFK, it just got approved last night.
Okay.
So it needed board approval. And there's the contract with JFK and an agreement between the school district and what we're going to do and what JFK is going to do. And that was just approved last night at the board meeting. So it's going to start very shortly.
Okay. I ask because I know parents who are going through this kind of thing right now. I'm wondering if I can give them like a date that this would start, or I just want to know because I get reached out to a lot by parents who.
Absolutely. I don't think we have a firm date right now.
We do have a teacher hired and ready to go. We're just working through the permission slips. And then I think a few more design issues with JFK. I would say probably within a few weeks we should be up and running. I think ideally JFK North staff wanted to target middle school age to test out this first run. So I think that's still the same depending on who they're currently serving. So we have to have a follow-up with them.
Great. If we can just get notification, like an email information that we can provide to anybody who asks us as community leaders about this program, that would be great.
That's great. And I'll let JFK North know that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the next person was Carrie. Can you
Yes,
go up?
thank you. I was just wondering if we could go, I think it was on slide 3. I just wanted to see who was on those teams again.
It didn't say per se who was on the team. That was our compliance training. But on the teams, you mean the crisis assessment, prevention, and education teams?
Yes, that, and also like who helped develop all of that. I know there were a lot of different groups involved, but who was on the CAPE teams and... No, not that slide. I think it was slide 3.
This was our compliance training
Okay.
list.
Okay.
I didn't have a slide per se of who makes up the crisis assessment, prevention, and education teams, but I'm happy to tell you who's on there. We have 4 mental health professional positions. These are licensed clinicians. Typically, currently right now, they're all licensed clinical social workers. And then we have additional staff that are in the role of behavioral health professional that have behavioral and mental health backgrounds.
Okay. Do you have any special education staff on there?
Yes, we do. Thank you. We do as well. We have 2 school psychologists who also serve on the CAPE team, and because we're looking for their expertise and their background on disabilities, especially as we deal with children who may be ESE.
Yes, but do you have special education teachers, like specific teachers that might know these kids or have that education in special education?
Absolutely. They're located at the actual schools. The student is in crisis at a school, and there's a whole school-based team that's working with that student. So you're going to have your ESE coordinator, you're going to have your ESE teachers, you're going to have a school psychologist, a behavioral health professional, school counselors are all located at the school where the child's having a crisis. This is a district team that comes in and supports the school and the student when they're really having a significant mental health crisis. So they're working with the school team on how to best de-escalate, what kind of supports they can provide students. They also work with the school staff when they are returning from hospitalization, and they want to make sure that there's safety plans in place and there's good transition plans so that the student and family is feeling supported when they enter back on campus. So they do a variety of different things, the CAPE team.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. And I understand that. I was just suggesting that it might be helpful to have a special education person, a special education teacher with that knowledge of multiple disabilities on both teams. I know they'll be at the school, but also maybe on that other team as well, the mental health crisis team as well.
Yeah, we know how important that is to certainly have that background, and that's why we have required school psychologists to be on the team, because they are well-versed in, with students with disabilities.
I know they have that training, absolutely, to be able to do those assessments and things. Special education adds a different element to it, to this whole thing as well. And I think sometimes having that knowledge and that background of strategies to be able to support families is helpful as well. I just wanted to put it out there that it's sometimes helpful because they are just as knowledgeable too in understanding multiple disabilities as well. But all right, thank you so much.
Carrie, just clarification on your recommendation. So you're saying for the teacher, what I'm hearing is an actual teacher who would be part of the CAPE team that responds?
Or someone who has special education background as a special education teacher. Yeah. It just adds a different element. You've got a lot of behavioral people, you've got psychologists, but having a special education teacher adds another element. I was looking at your data. You were saying 42 transports and 12 had disabilities. You're talking like 8-10% of all your transports have children with disabilities in the special education department, ESE. So, I'm thinking that, that might be helpful to have someone with special education background and knowledge since, you're looking at, like I said, 8-10% of your people that are being transported do have special education, so or some kind of disability. So that's why I just thought it might be helpful to have that kind of personnel or staff on that team as well.
No, I agree. As a former special education teacher myself,
Me too.
I couldn't agree with it. Okay.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands in the room or on, Maria, I'm sorry.
No worries.
You got to keep your hands up. I'm so sorry. Yes.
I know. I just noticed that it was down. I'm sorry. I'm battling a very bad sinus infection.
No worries.
First of all, thank you so much. This is so important, and I'm so appreciative to be able to see this. I'm concerned, obviously, on the Hispanic side. It's a little bit of alarming to me when I saw the percentage or the numbers of the female Hispanics. And my question is, or my observation is that is there enough that we're doing, or can we do more to identify factors involved here? And again, my other concern is the language barrier, and also the transports and anything that goes with that. There is a culture barrier, as we know, that a lot of times they don't want their children to be transported or be taken to a hospital or any type of facility like that. I don't even know. I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this, because it just was an eye-opening for me that such alarming numbers on the Hispanic side, and especially females.
Yes, this is the first time we've collected this data, so it's been really eye-opening for us as well. Anecdotally, we have known Hispanic females has made up a group of the students who have been in crisis, but now we have actual hard data. And that's what the internal, really the external collaboration group is discussing. We want to move forward and not just collect data, but talk about what type of interventions and prevention activities we can put in place for specific groups. So that was actually something we talked about at our last two meetings as this data was emerging, and we saw this concern with Hispanic females. So we're working on that. We're open to any and all ideas. I do have a number of Hispanic females who are licensed that work on my team who are also aware of this data. So we're looking at what we might be able to do in terms of providing support.
I do want to add, so your question is great. So along the continuum, this data is one of students actually in crisis. So more getting on the prevention side. Last meeting we talked about school-wide positive behavior support, and under the MTSS framework, multi-tiered systems of support, how do we ensure that each and every student has a caring and healthy relationship with an adult, that they can have support, healthy relationships with their peers. So that's the ongoing work at the school level around Tier 1, right? And then in Tier 2, that we have different programs, whether they're anti-bullying programs. I think we talked about the last meeting that the district received a grant to expand Safe Schools Ambassadors and teen mental health first aid. So teen mental health first aid, some of you may have gone through youth mental health first aid training. Teen mental health first aid is designed, it's going to go into just about every high school, where we're teaching our teenagers to identify those signs and concerns of mental health issues. So if they're having their own issues, or how to support other students if they see they're having issues and concern, and how have them reach out for assistance. So we're excited about those type of projects to get more in front of it, because I couldn't agree with you more, Maria. There's got to be more so we don't get to the point where they're actually in this crisis. I do think working with the families and the community and providing that support is an area where we would love to have additional support and messaging. Our message is that it's okay to be okay, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help. So, and for our communities and families, if they see their kids, the pandemic definitely exacerbated. The social isolation that kids went through and felt is playing out on our school campuses every day. We have to reteach our students. They were, neurologically rewired, and we have to teach them about how to build those healthy relationships and support one another all over. So we're kind of starting all over. We got to let the families know that that's okay to reach out and to assist with that piece.
Thank you. Thank you, and please count on us with the Hispanic Chamber, myself personally, however we can help and assist, we're there.
Thank you.
So I had a few questions. I think I'm the last one. Yes, I had a few questions. We can give a copy of the presentation. That's the answer to Robin's question. Through Susan, the committee will receive a copy of this presentation. So since this screen is up, my first question, and it's the small question, race. What is N? I mean, maybe my mind is going crazy, but the three, I know what B, I know what W, but I have no idea what N or M is.
M is multiracial.
Oh, multiracial, but what is N?
The N is a Native American.
Oh, Native. Oh, we were just sitting here thinking, what is N? Thank you.
Late board meeting.
Yes. So, okay, the other question I have, going back to one of the first slides where it discussed policy 5.20 right there. Go back one. This one, the training. I see was or are substitutes will or are substitutes required to take these trainings as well?
We don't currently, but that's a good suggestion.
Currently you have a number of permanent substitutes in positions, and you have substitutes that are playing a instrumental role in the schools. So I do think that it is important for substitutes to be included at least in policy 5.20 student mental health crisis, as well as student awareness and prevention, because if it's all school-based staff, that's school-based. So I think that's something that I would like to recommend for you all to consider. Another question that I had, which is under transportation. One school, you said one school that had more than two. Who was that school, and what was this? What level? If you don't want to state the name.
I want to say the school only because we don't want to get into identifiable student information.
That's fine.
It was a high school.
School, okay.
And it was 3 distinct different cases.
Okay.
We did reach out to the school and offer additional support. There wasn't a pattern there of a particular person or an issue. So.
Okay, no problem. And then under transport again. Transport done by school district, you said there was 6 so far this year, if I heard correctly, and 106 from the community?
That was January. So if you look at January, the transports from school, district schools or activities were 6.
And then from the community?
In the community, don't quote me, because that's Sharon Tarlow's numbers coming out of JFK. I think it was right around 160.
Okay, 160. Okay, so the question that
range is monthly when we have these meetings with Sheriff's Office, Mobile Crisis Unit,
right,
community transports.
So that brings me to my next question when we talked about between the 6 and the difference between the community. So just 2 days ago, I had a conversation with a parent who had her child Baker Act, and it wasn't the school who Baker Acted her. The police came to her house and they asked the questions. When she was at the school did not determine she needed to be Baker Act. The crisis mobile unit did not determine she needed to be Baker Act. But somehow the parent had a knock on her door. And this could be an isolated incident, but how many more isolated incidents that does happen like this, and how are we tracking it? So we have the relationship with the sheriff department, but what about the other municipalities that are transporting? Do we have their input? Are we getting those data for the municipalities like the city of Boca Raton or the city of Boynton and Delray when they transport at the house, but it stemmed from the school? So if there's a report, how are we, and just follow me here, if something happened at the school with a student, let's say it's at the end of the day, and that student somehow leave, whether it's the bus, whether it's home, and there is a follow-up that's necessary. That follow-up, are we still doing the form and following that whole procedure through when we get to the house? When that happens where the city police is now knocking on the door, who completes that form? At that point, it's not on the school campus. It stemmed from school. That call to the police stemmed from school.
It may or may not. We don't know. That's the big challenge that we face.
No, that's the question. Because
of privacy, we don't have that data information. All we get is a number of transports that are community driven, for lack of a better word, or initiated. So we wouldn't know that unless a family signs a consent through JFK or other facility for us to receive the information. We would not know about the incident in order to follow up and support the student upon return to school.
So if the school calls the police and say this student, this student did X, Y, and Z, the crisis.
The school doesn't. That's not the protocol. The school wouldn't call. They would utilize their district team.
Okay, the school calls the district team, whoever they call.
Yeah.
The school calls the district team at the school.
Yep.
The student has now left the school premises. Whether they left involuntarily, they left at the end of the day on the bus.
We would use our own school police to do home visit and follow
Okay.
up accordingly.
The home police will go do that home visit.
Our school police would do the home visit if this child had already left prior to an issue happening on a campus.
So that's the procedure would be the school police would go to the home, not the city police.
First of all, we want to keep the students safe, so we keep them on campus. We don't let them go home.
Regardless of how, I'm just saying if it happened at the end of the day and the student is no longer on campus, but the incident or the complaint or the initial complaint started at the school. What I'm asking is the procedure is that the school, I've heard that the procedure is school police will do the home visit.
No.
So I hear no.
So let me just be clear.
Your situation, I don't know of a situation where something started on a campus and then went home.
This is what we would do. If we have a student who is in crisis at the end of the day, we don't let them go. Okay, we have the team there, this administrators stay, essential personnel stay on campus, and we work with that student, we work with school police. So we don't let them go. If a student were to elope in that situation or to run away or to somehow evade that team who is trying to work with them, they run away, that would be a safety issue, and then the community or the school police would then follow up.
Let me give you a different example. This student wrote some things, and it was found in her desk, right? The student was then, whatever it was, that it was some suicidal, like she said, wrote something about killing herself. She wrote it in her desk. It was not, or on her desk or on a piece of paper, and the teacher did not notice it until the end of the day. The teacher then took the paper, and the teacher took it to the front office. There was then the parent was called and said that this child, this is what the child did. It was at the end of the day. The child left the campus.
Okay.
Because they didn't see this until after the child had left the campus. The school police did not knock on that door. It was the municipality police or the city police knocked on the door. The city police took her in handcuffs, but it was something that stemmed from the school campus. The city police transported her.
So that
in conjunction with the school police, I'm sure that they may have communicated, but it was not the school police. So I'm asking, what is the procedure if something happens on school and they have to do a follow-up? Is it the city or is it the school? Because if the school police is knocking on the door, then of course we have that data. But if it's the city police that's knocking on the door because of something, and the city police goes and say, we just want to follow up, we got this complaint, you said you were suicidal. Are you suicidal? Well, I just said it because of whatever. They still took the child. The crisis mobile unit was involved as well. They didn't think she needed to be taken. They thought she needed to see a psychologist. But the police still took the child, and this recently happened. So I am asking, what is the procedure?
So so it depends. So we get threats that come in, and I'm not just talking about suicidal issues, but threats that come in at 24/7, right? So Fortify Florida goes off all hours of the night. I get all the locations for the school district. If it happens late at night, school police works with local municipalities, sheriff's office, depending on the time of the day, to respond to a situation, especially if it involves a weapon and a potential threat to a school. Someone makes a threat that they're going to shoot up the school or make something like that. We respond immediately to a situation. Depending on the time of the day, in this particular situation, if school police is still on, they may respond, or if they're not, then we would work with the partner agencies that we work with about responding to ensure the safety of the child.
So the paperwork and the data is still being tracked in that manner, or because
so in that situation, if it was an outside agency that transferred, we may or may not show on our school police transfer. It would show on the... It
would show up in the hospitalization. That data we get, that 160, is actual admissions into JFK. So when a child has been transported from the community into the hospital, That's the data they provide us because we don't know what happens outside of the school day. So they provide those numbers to us. So it would be that particular child would be captured in most likely in the JFK data because they were admitted and went through the involuntary examination at the hospital, and that's what the hospital reports to us, is all the kids that are transported that go to the hospital for an involuntary examination. They let us know how many are released and how many stay, okay, where the orders are lifted or they stay in. And so that's the data that we receive from that external partner, JFK, to let us know, because we have no way of knowing who's been hospitalized from the community.
JFK data is you get all the students that are transported at JFK.
We get the number.
Number, not the people, the number.
Yes.
So the number that's at JFK, because JFK is the only minor transport receiving facility.
There's some beds in South, and South County has a couple of beds
for minors.
I think they do. Yeah, they do.
South County Mental Health.
Yeah, and
for
so
long term, or I'm saying when
talking
transport.
short.
Oh, short term. Okay, so regardless of Baker Act, so that number for JFK, does that include private students? Does that include
everybody.
Charter? So you don't really know if that's our student or not.
Well,
Those are just everybody.
We do like to say that all the children in Palm Beach County are our responsibility. We're regardless of whether they're private school,
right? But we don't know
school.
if those are Palm Beach County students. And I'm not asking. I'm just saying. I'm just asking that question. So we really don't know if that's
a gap. No,
right.
That's what I brought up earlier. It's a gap where, especially in your situation, hopefully the school would have followed up because they would have known about the situation.
Right.
But the other ones, if they are students, we don't know. Working with JFK North, they are trying to get releases so that the school can better support. So it's a big gap.
Right. Okay.
We're trying to match. We don't have a way yet of those providing releases.
Keep in mind that HIPAA comes into play 100%. So JFK is bound by the HIPAA regulation.
Right. Right.
We have asked for JFK to provide us, more breakdown of data like we have here, and they haven't been able to do that. So they're very private, and they encourage parents to please sign a release of information so they can share it with the school, because then my team can help with that transition back from hospitalization. But we only know the cases we know. We encourage parents to be open with us, and that's ongoing work.
Okay.
May I ask a quick question?
I was just going to say, I had one more question for mine, and then Kimberly, you can take the floor. The other question is, are you looking into having that relationship with the other, I know that's a lot of municipalities, but are you looking to have a relationship with the municipalities, or perhaps attending I think there's a chief meeting. Perhaps that's a avenue that you can attend. I've attended that meeting at least probably twice now, where all of the chiefs of all of the municipalities attend. Maybe that's an area that the school board or the school district can get the information about transports of minors. I'm not sure how that would go, and we could talk offline a little bit more about that given time, but I think just having that conversation with the sheriff department, that's great, but what about the other municipalities that also could transport our kids? And that's just a thought, and also a recommendation or a suggestion for consideration. Kimberly, and then Reginald.
My question is, are the students that we're talking about today the ones who are transported from school or admitted for extensive periods to JFK subject to threat assessments? And we're talking about ones who make threats to self-injure, and then separately students who threaten to harm others.
We have a module. It's called EdPlan. It's our behavioral threat assessment module that we use for children who make threats to themselves or others. If they make a threat to others, there's a certain set of questions. A threat to self, there's a set of questions that includes the Columbia And then both of those modules contain information about the strengths for the students so that we can build intervention and support plans. It also has a safety monitoring plan, student support plan that's included in that module. So we're looking at not only the incident as it happens and trying to evaluate, how serious the incident may be, but also the follow-up and how we can best support the student moving forward. And it has a monitoring component to it.
My question is more the state database where there and the student file where there's a threat assessment that is put into the student file and accessible by state law enforcement.
That would be a threat to others.
We're required by law to investigate all those threats.
But would a self-harm one be added to that database?
No, not that I know of.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Ms. Mucinek? Dr. Mucinek, I'm sorry. Dr. Mucinek. Here are no further questions. I'm sorry, Reginald.
Hand up? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Ms. Guthrie.
Reginald and then Ms. Guthrie.
Oh, okay. It was a question for Dr. Mucinek, though.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Masha. Okay. I just wanted, if you could speak a little bit to the parent engagement. I know we went over a lot of data and how the process works, but I'm just wondering if you can speak to what the parent engagement efforts look like for the work that you are doing, because I know that this can be a very confusing space for parents, trying to figure out how they navigate the multiple systems and between schools and the treatment agencies and all of the professionals that are involved. So I'm just I just would like you to talk a little bit about how are we helping parents to understand all of the complexities of what you just shared with us.
Okay, so that's a big bucket, and I would say there's a continuum of parent engagement. I do want to say that on March 2nd, Dr. Visenik and I are going to be doing a board workshop, an update about mental health and the work that's being done at a broader level outside of this space, and continuously improving parent engagement and outreach at the school level is really kind of the tier one of who the students reach out to for support when in crisis. I'll let Dr. Visenik go more deeper when it gets into
absolutely. It has certainly come up in our discussion with those external stakeholder meetings of how we can support. So we're working really hard. We're working very hard to support the students, our school staff, and families during that school day. And we want to work very closely with our community collaborators and our different agencies on how we can extend this out into the community and get the word out. Like Mr. Oswald was saying, we are really stressing and trying to destigmatize mental health. We know that there's some cultural differences with our different groups and how they view mental health. So we really are working hard to destigmatize it and normalize mental health is very much like physical health. It varies from day to day, and we have to take care of it. So that's part of our message, and we're working with the community on how we can expand that to others, especially our faith organizations. That's another group that has been suggested we work with.
We are at 10:30, and our unfinished business section was until 10:30. If we can extend that time, if I have a motion to extend the time by 5 minutes, we can take 5 minutes from...
I move to extend the time to 5 minutes. This is Reggie.
Motion by Mr. Pagan. Reggie, do you want to second it?
Fine.
Motion by Mr. Gahn, second by Reginald. Any objections? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Continue, Reginald.
Yeah, I have a question, also a suggestion. I have a similar issue that happened to us recently where the child was bullied at school and the child showed up in our after-school program during what we call check-in, where we sit the kids around the circle asking them what had happened. And then the child started crying, said, well, she's been bullied at school. And then during homework time, we had all the kids to pull the backpack. And she did have a note. She said she was going to kill herself. Therefore, since I have access to the school principal, I contacted her right away, telling her what we were going to do. We contacted the PBSO police department. We contacted the mom. We did take her to, Sac County Mental Health. and we follow up that way. But my question that I have for the school district, since we are such a big district, is there a way that we can have an interlocal agreement with all the hospitals so that we can share information with them? And secondly, you can also incorporate a release form as a part of the application to ask the parents if the child has a 504 plan, any medical behavioral health, you can access to that because we have the same form. And anytime a child tells us something, we can always call whoever's servicing that child to get that information. And I'm wondering why can the school district do the same thing?
So you're saying, so your agreement is with who? With the parent?
With the parent, yeah. It's a part of our registration package. The parent sign a release form, give us access to get the kid's grade, 504 plan. If the child been admitted for any behavioral or the health issues, we can get a copy of that.
So that is for the children?
Yes. If I'm asking, can we?
So
do
we
this
have our own consent. We do have our own similar consent form, but I think so. You got FERPA and then you got HIPAA. So you got two different laws. So some of what you're talking about is FERPA, which is more academic related consent. So if we're able to get consent, JFK or the other hospitalizations, they have to get the consent where they're allowed to share under HIPAA that information with the school district.
Yes, we work really hard to get the information and work with families. We don't want to be intrusive, but we want to be supportive. So we have there's a consent that we have developed in the district where if we know something is going on, we can communicate with a pediatrician, a private therapist, or a hospital, and we have the parents sign the consent and we say specifically what type of information we're looking for. So if we know it on our end, we would initiate that conversation and the benefits to families of being collaborative with an outside provider. So we work with them. Now, Sharon Tarlow, who is the liaison at JFK, also works with families. She's been there for years and years, and she understands the benefit of collaborating with the school district. And she works very hard with parents to let them know that to have them let us know, because she can't tell us, but to have the families notify the schools about the incident or the struggles that the student is having, especially if the school is unaware. So Sharon Tarlow works very hard on having parents share that information with us. She's not able, obviously, to give us any personal information of students who are hospitalized, but she certainly encourages the families to come back to us and let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left on this topic, and then we do have to move on to our start time consideration. Carrie, you have spoken before, but I will allow the floor for this 1 minute, the last speaker on this topic.
Great. Thank you so much. I was just wondering, on this district compliance training, are police officers involved in all these trainings as well, or in any of the other trainings that you have?
They are. They have a whole set of trainings that are required around this type of work and working with students who have disabilities. And they have a whole set of training that is required of them provided by the state. They are welcome. We collaborate with them frequently. We have a very good relationship with school police, and you can see they're on both of our teams in terms of our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, so they are absolutely aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it might be helpful for them to be on these specific trainings for the school district. I know they have their own as well, but thank you. I just wanted to mention that. That's
a great question. There are some of these that they do. We'll bring more clarification on which ones they're doing here versus their own internal. There is legislation under a school safety bill that is going to require throughout Florida all school-based officers to go through de-escalation training. So, which will be good for any of the municipalities that are working in our schools, not just here, but I mean, obviously we have our school police, but in other spaces.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Just to recap, this presentation. First, we want to say, Dr. Mucinek, thank you so much for coming back with these updates. It was very helpful, and the recommendations that I captured along with the motion, and collectively, I know it's by name, but collectively to the board report, we go on as a committee, not individuals. So if we can agree to these, that I'm going to read, these motions, these recommendations, these suggestions or concerns to bring forth, we'll make a collective motion at the end on behalf of the committee. So what I heard was Kimberly Spiro motion for DDEC subcommittee to be created to review district training as it relates to the student mental health crisis. It was seconded by Emmy Kemi, approved unanimously. Carrie Riddle from FAU card recommended for a special education teacher or background on the CAPE team. And I'm going to just add to that recommendation. I'm going to make it one big recommendation. Oh, actually, CAPE team. Let's leave that. Dr. Maria Antuna shared her concern about the female Hispanic transport rates when students are in crisis. And I did not capture if there was a recommendation. I know there was a concern, but I did not capture that recommendation, Dr. Antuna. Charmaine Poster recommended substitutes are included in being required to complete policy 5.20, student mental health crisis and suicide awareness and prevention. Charmaine Poster recommended that the district have an equal relationship with the municipal police regarding transport data as they have with the sheriff department. Carrie Whittle recommended that school police be included on those policies, policy 5.20, as well as be required to take policy 5.20, as well as student mental health crisis and suicide awareness prevention, both of those trainings that school police. Did I hear that correctly, Carrie? And then Ms. Guthrie, there was I don't know if it was a recommendation, but there was something you said about parent engagement, and I wanted to just circle back and ask if that was a recommendation, or if you had a recommendation for staff that we can add on to this.
Yeah, I guess my recommendation is just that we have be more explicit in when we're sharing this kind of information about ultimately how parents are involved in this process, what they understand. We talked a lot about training for a lot of other groups, all the professionals, the educators, law enforcement, so on and so forth. But what about the families that these children ultimately belong to? Where are they in the process? And so I appreciated Mr. Osborne sharing that there will be a board workshop where we will dive into more specifically about the parent engagement piece. But if this was my young person, I wouldn't want to be an afterthought. And I'm not saying that is what that Dr. Mucinek was putting forth, but they need to be an essential champion in any conversations, just like the rest of the partners that were spoken about. Ultimately, they should be first.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you brought that up. There is a requirement that we do contact the parent when in the middle of the crisis. I know that's not necessarily your point at all, but no, I do want to let you know that is a requirement. I understand where you're coming from. And the board workshop, I think one of the challenges we face is really around parent engagement at a deeper level. And I know this particular committee, since I've been coming, that's one of the areas that we keep talking about going back to across the spectrum of many academic and social emotional issues of how do we do a better job when it comes to parent engagement and how you navigate. I will say just, and not to take the recommendation away, at the school level, one of the big things we are working with schools is to let parents know about who to turn to, who to go to talk about when it comes to mental and behavioral health, who to reach out to at the school level for support. We have many, many resources we never had a few years ago, and there is greater support as well as ongoing training that's really initiated at the school level. Most parents are closest and connected at the school level than, let's say, the district level. They know their schools, and that's one of the key pieces we have to work on improving. So I agree with the recommendation.
And my recommendation is that we be explicit in our communication and that we lift up parents and their vital role, because again, a contact, for those of you who have children in the district, I've been contacted, not in regards to this. Thankfully, my daughter has never had this kind of mental health crisis, and I hope she never has, but she certainly has dealt with her own sets of issues. Sometimes there's a passive aggressive contact to parents. Oh, well, we contact the parent. I called them. I never got them. And then but it's the parent who ultimately has to deal with the running back and forth between all the various places, getting all the players involved, and then they're left alone, oftentimes, to manage their way through our very complex systems. And so I cannot champion enough as a community member and as a parent that we don't put that on the back burner or the thereafter. And that's this entire conversation. I was just waiting to say, well, when somebody's going to talk about me? Mm-hmm. And I really didn't hear that until I had to ask the question. So thank you for your hard work. And I just want to push us to do better.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
No, but I think there was, did we get the recommendation about?
I'm sorry.
Just that we check with JFK regarding training around gender.
Thank you, Rex Burns.
Sexuality.
Rex Burns recommended following up with, or
following up with JFK.
Trainings with JFK regarding sexuality. Mm-hmm. Okay, collectively as a committee, because I don't go to the board with names, collectively as a committee, are there any objections to any of the recommendations that was brought forth by committee members today? Have a motion to approve our recommendation to go forward before the board.
Motion.
I need that motion.
Second.
No, I need the motion, the actual motion.
Do I have to repeat every word you mentioned?
I just need a motion to bring forth all the recommendations.
Motion to propose recommendations.
To propose above recommendations.
You have to memorize it. I'm going to test you in a little bit.
The board at the next regular board meeting. So there's a motion to propose our recommendations to the board at the next regular board meeting.
Second.
Who was that second?
Kimberly. Fire. Oh.
Motion by Juan Pagan, second by Kimberly Sparrow. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Perfect. The next item on the agenda is, seeing that it is 10:44, and we don't have any public comment. Just a reminder for the committee that public comment is those who are in the public, and I don't see any public attendees at this moment. Do I see any, or do I hear anyone who is from the public online that would like to speak at this time? It is 10:45. Hearing none, we'll go back to our unfinished business of start time consideration. Start time consideration, if someone could pass this out. We discussed about having a change in our start time due to conflicts in scheduling with staff and other board members. We have been fortunate. We have been one of the committees that's been fortunate enough to meet month after month. Other committees are struggling with attendance and quorum, but I want to thank each and every one of you for knowing how important this committee is and showing up and meeting our quorum for this entire school year. However, we do also want to continue to meet these quorums, and we want to have those that are vital to this committee in attendance with us, especially for those that are in staff. Do I need to cross that one out? No. Okay. So before you, and for those that are online, the proposed start changes, we would continue to have it on this day, but just looking to shift it from 10 to 12, 10:30 to 12:30, or 11 to 1 o'clock. Just shifting the time to accommodate the staff that would no longer be able to meet this time, this 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. time frame due to other obligations. I'll pass the floor on to Mr. Keith, and he can share more about that.
Yeah, so I think everybody in the world picks the last Thursday of the month for meetings. And so to kind of help, particularly my schedule, there's always a middle school and a high school principals meeting that I like to get to address issues. So the 10 to 12 would give me enough time to actually attend that particular meeting, just sometime after 10, to be able to just address multiple meetings that usually occur this time. So if that works for the committee or not. So I guess we get open for discussion.
Yes, the floor is open for discussion.
I will add that I know
Martha,
that
I saw your hands. Go ahead.
Is that Mark or Marcia?
Marcia.
Okay. The actually new proposed time would work for me, actually worked very well. My counterpart, Ms. Mondesir, Rachel Mondesir, we're both the NAACP reps. She was the primary and I was the alternate. But Ms. Mondesir might be transitioning from her work with us at the NAACP. And so I would want to participate more actively on this committee. It's always a challenge because I have a standing meeting from usually 9 to noon, but it usually doesn't go past like say 10:30 and 11 o'clock. So if the time was changed, selfishly, it would allow me to have greater participation as I consider moving into the primary rep for NAACP, and we will identify an alternate if Ms. Mondesir is not able to continue her commitment. We certainly do not want to not have representation on this group.
Thank you. Kimberly?
I'm able to do 10 to 12, but the other times I have a standing meeting at 12 and another one that starts at 1.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I would like to suggest, because, like kids, I got to be in 2 places at the same time, and I haven't been able to do it yet, So 10 to 12 will fit perfectly, because I will not sacrifice this meeting. This is the priority. Is that a motion? Motion to have it 10 to 12, the meeting.
There's a motion to propose our start time change to 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. by Mr. Juan Pagan.
Second.
Have a second by Sue Davis. Are there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
The DDEC have now changed our start times to 10 a.m. To 12 p.m.
Thank you.
On the 4th Thursday of every month. And we will address our calendars and as well as online. I'm sorry? The second was Sue Killen Davis. We'll address every, we could talk offline.
Yeah, we'll adjust all that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We have the next board meeting is scheduled for, I know the next scheduled regular meeting, I believe, is March 23rd. However, there's another March 2nd. The next special board meeting is March 2nd, so govern yourselves accordingly with the agenda that may come before you and the discussion that may come before you. And then the next scheduled meeting is March 23rd. as all of these recommendations that we just recently approved will go before them, the recommendation and the motion. Are there any unfinished business to come before, new business to come before the body? Ms. Kimberly.
Quickly, I just wanted to know on March 2nd what time we should be there.
March 2nd meeting is usually at 2 p.m.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then I would like to make a motion that we form a subcommittee to review the trainings that are provided by the school district. The mental health and crisis trainings.
We have the motion already included. It was the subcommittee, the motion for the subcommittee. We have that motion and it was already approved. So under the new business, are you looking for the committee date?
No, I'm sorry. I thought I had to ask it again or ask it now. So
no, it's just now is who wants to participate and when do they want to participate?
Okay.
Because we actually have to have it in this type of meeting. So is there anyone who's interested in participating in the subcommittee by Kimberly? Carrie, Kimberly, Emmy, and this subcommittee is to meet and go through the trainings or participate in any trainings that's permitted by the staff. Maria, and let me just get those names. Maria, is that hand to participate?
Yes, ma'am, to participate.
Carrie, Emmy. Anyone else? Maria, Carrie, Emmy.
I have a question. This is Marsha. Is that just on trainings in general or certain specific trainings?
I really would like us to have a subcommittee that is trainings in general and with the primary focus right now on the mental health because that's priority right now. But I would really like if I was going to, Marsha, you was reading my mind. We're just talking about that. If we could see if Kimberly will entertain it dropping from trainings, but that be a topic, a mental health be a topic in that training, training in general.
I repropose the motion with the friendly amendment of the subcommittee review all trainings.
Yeah,
I think I have to recall the motion.
Participate.
All right, we need a motion to recall the previous motion by Kimberly. Kimberly, is that a motion to recall your previous motion?
Yes, although I think under...
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Juan Pagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Or in the discussion?
Aye.
Objection? Motion carries. Okay, so now we can do the friendly amendment. So now you can have an amendment to your motion because we've recalled it.
Okay, I make a motion that a subcommittee be created to review trainings by the school district for all the staff or specific areas of the staff.
Repeat that one more time, Kimberly.
I make a motion for a subcommittee to be submitted or to be created that includes all trainings that are provided to all staff and to different groups of the staff.
Did you capture it? Okay. Waiting for a second.
Is that just, for mental health or for all training?
For all trainings, but they're going to focus on, within that training, they're focused on mental health.
Our initial assignment would be to look at mental health, but then we could expand beyond that.
That is correct.
Second.
And motion by Kimberly Sparrow, second by Emmy Kenny. If you want to repeat that motion. Kimberly Sparrow makes the motion.
I move to create a subcommittee.
She's not you, Kimberly. The staff
I'm
is.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, you got to speak into the mic. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I apologize. Kimberly Spiral makes a motion for a subcommittee to be created to review trainings that are provided for district staff and faculty.
Can I offer a friendly, potential amendment if anybody wants to pick it up?
Go ahead. I'm listening.
To provide feedback to district staff.
To provide.
Right? So the purpose is to provide us feedback, right?
Yes.
Okay.
To
Do I-
Just so for someone hearing it in general public understands.
Staff. Feedback to district staff. Okay. Staff
So
and
do I
the
need
board.
to withdraw my amendment?
No,
and-
you don't have to withdraw it because it had not been, we didn't go through the motion. That's for discussion. So that amendment would be to review trainings, we're still in discussion, that are provided for district staff and faculty to provide feedback to district staff and faculty. District staff.
District leadership. No.
Staff and faculty. Would that also include, and this is, we're in discussion, my comment or discussion would be, would that include recommendations to, or feedback to the board or superintendent as well? 'Cause those are two different people.
With the subcommittee,
Because
would probably bring it to the larger committee, right?
Yes, and then the DDC could make that decision. Okay, perfect. I'll leave that alone. That is provided for district staff and faculty to provide feedback to district staff. Okay. So I heard, if you want to reread that one more time. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to reread it. Kimberly Spiro makes a motion for subcommittee to be created to review trainings that are provided for district staff and faculty and provide feedback to district staff and faculty.
The motion was seconded by Emmy Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Can I also get a motion to include this in, well, this is part of the, no, I don't have to do that. Any other new business to come before the?
Just a suggestion on time, since we moved the meeting start time up to 10, I wouldn't necessarily be in attendance, but to have it as a pre-meeting to this meeting, so people don't have to find another date. We could do 9 to 10, because Dr. Masenik's staff would be the one that would be going over the trainings. So since we're going to already have this meeting scheduled, we could do it from 9 to 10, and then those who are participating can just stay on for the regular meeting. Just as to help.
A suggestion for the meetings, for the regular meetings that we would have, the subcommittee meetings, Mr. Oswald recommended or suggested that the trainings could stay from 9 to 10 on the fourth Thursday of every meeting. He doesn't necessarily have to be at these meetings. He's suggesting that it comes at 9 o'clock, and then we'll just stay on for DDEC, the additional hour. Are there any oppositions or?
Do you need a motion?
Yeah,
I think that's
amendment to make it 8
No.
to 10 to get more done.
No, she's going to just create a motion for the time the subcommittee would
From
meet.
what I understand, I make a motion to have the trainings committee meet from 9 to 10 on the morning before the DDEC meeting.
Waiting on a second. There's a motion on the floor to for the subcommittee, training subcommittee, to meet from 9 to 10 on the day that DDEC meet, which is traditionally on the fourth Thursday of every month. And the motion was brought forth by Emmy Kenny.
Second.
Second by
Does
one.
Carrie have something to say?
Are there any discussions? Go ahead, Carrie.
I know Kimberly was talking about possibly extending that time a little bit more than the hour to be a little more productive, but I'm going to defer to you on that, Kimberly.
That was my suggestion, but I'm interested in input from the subcommittee members.
I need a motion to extend the time. It is now 11 o'clock.
Motion.
Or 10:59. Motion by Wampagon.
Second.
Second by Emmy Kenny. Motion, any objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Time extended by 10 minutes. I have a hard stop in 10 minutes, by the way. Emmy, Kenny, go ahead.
So maybe what we can do is get the trainings ahead of time. I'm sure they all have a slideshow, PowerPoint, and then during this hour we can have discussion. We can review them as a subcommittee. We can review them on our own time before, and then from 9 to 10 just discuss and provide the feedback, do that component in person.
I don't think it's going to be a one and done. This is probably going to be
Yes.
ongoing work. So I think
Yes.
I don't think you could unpack everything. Even
And
in
the
a month.
purpose of the meeting is not to do the busy work in the meeting, is to provide that feedback and the discussion on what needs to go before the DDEC committee, so that the DDEC committee essentially is to bring forth any recommendations or feedback to the board and superintendent.
And just a quick question. Did I hear you said that the next meeting is March 23rd?
4th.
Oh, 24th. Okay,
The next
never
school
mind.
board meeting.
Oh,
is
okay,
usually
never
the-
mind. Thank you.
That. Go ahead, Kimberly. Did you have something?
I just want to make sure with Keith and Dr. Musenik that that would be possible to get the training links or trainings ahead of time.
So we're going to have to look at that. I don't want to give a solid answer because some of it is internal and we just got to review. So this, as a subcommittee, I don't have an issue when we go over here. I just want to have that discussion before we send anything out. And I want to work with legal department.
Okay, I make a recommendation that the ones that are available we do outside of here. And if I need to make a motion on that, I can do that.
I think that's a subcommittee motion, and I think that is something that could be done at the subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
And right now, the next meeting is March 23rd, and since staff is here, that's a month away. They have ample time to kind of review and bring that back with subcommittee. I do ask Kimberly that you communicate directly with staff, and as of right now, I'll just, for the chair purposes of the subcommittee, we'll just go ahead and name you as a layperson until that first meeting, and the committee can vote on their chair.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Since you spearheaded it, we're putting you to work. And so, therefore, Kimberly will chair that first meeting on.
And as a subcommittee, just be
March
reminded it is in the sunshine. So
Yes.
that's why we have to check with sending information out as well. So.
Of course.
Yes.
You didn't get the motion carried for the 9 to 10 on 4 Thursday because we were in discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor, the motion that was on the floor for subcommittee trainings meeting to be the fourth Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. Fourth Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. We were in discussion. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I do not see any other new business to come before us, and no further business. Any further questions?
Just a quick reminder to everybody that the biggest Hispanic multicultural festival is coming on March the 5th. This is the 11th anniversary, and it's going to be at the Green Acres Community Park, the John Ferrari Park. We've been holding it there for the last 10 years. The last time that was in live and in vivid color, we have over 10,000 people. 2021, all we have was a drive-through. So this year, we're crossing our fingers that we're going to be there. The school district's going to be there. So information, you're talking about that the parents should know about the testings and all this information about mental health. It will be great. There were some flyers in Spanish, Creole, English that be there. That will be awesome. So
Yeah, we have a couple tables, I think.
yes, you have 2 tents.
Tents.
Because we're under just a quick question regarding the Sunshine Law, regarding the subcommittee, because we're under the Sunshine Law, I just want to make sure for quorum purposes. Right now I have Maria, Carrie, and Emmy. Marsha, did you say you were going to be a member on this committee, or?
I would have liked to participate, but with the time being before the 9 o'clock, that's not going to work for me because I'm likely not going to be able to get to the DDEC regular meeting until about 10:30.
Okay.
So,
would it be? Would I? Can I also suggest that maybe you still can come on as a public or attend because you're a member of the DDEC? That you can still attend like the trainings that might not be within that time. They may have trainings various times throughout the district or could be online.
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Could she communicate with staff regarding any recommendations he or she has?
Absolutely.
So that we can consider it in our subcommittee meetings.
Absolutely, and that goes for that's extended to every member of the DDEC. If there's any recommendations, if there's any recommendations, please, Carrie, I acknowledge your hands. Just give me 1 minute. If there's any recommendations that you would like the subcommittee to have, please communicate through staff. Go ahead, Carrie.
Can I add Robin Jones to that as well, or is she
fine.
still considered under? Okay,
that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. For the purpose of quorum, there is we need for the purpose of quorum, we need at least 3 members present in order to conduct that meeting. Seeing that there is no further business to come before the DDEC meeting, if I have a motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
Juan Pagan has motion to adjourn, 11:07. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, bye.
Thank you.
Did you say that's March 10th? March 5th. March 5th.
Hispanic Heritage Festival.
Thank you. Good work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your input. Oh, this is great. Okay. Yes, I definitely have some flyers we can put out for sure.
So you have, when I was hearing that Keith.
Yeah, and she wrote minutes also, so it's just a matter of.
I know.
I like it to see them trying to